Hey, I am the original Joshy Cox. Or Joshy MasQuerade, as some of you may know me. I go by both names at times, but just wanted to give a shout out here. I was on a live on Sunday night, I believe it was, and I just wanted to give a little bit of background to that. Most people know me. I am usually a political commentator, also a songwriter on the side. That's something I do for fun. But when I am not razzing liberals and doing the Let's Go Brandon or the Fuck Joe Biden thing, I'm actually I'm considered, I guess you could say, a I don't know, not a professional medium because I don't practice being a medium. I don't do that as a job. I don't take money for that. Although I have helped people out in certain situations, but I'm also a paranormal investigator. And I got into just creating some of my own short films and filming my old podcast, The Masquerade. And I started to expanded and started Joshy Cox Films, and that's an affiliate or an association with Masquerade Productions. And I started a little group that I call Goin Ghostal Paranormal Investigators, which I actually have a YouTube page, and you can check that out as well. You can see some of my work. I don't have a large catalog yet there, but we are working on that, and we go out and do things as we can. I came out to you Sunday night, and that's kind of my own relief, if you will, from like I said, from the whole political arena, which sometimes everybody needs a little bit of a hiatus because it can drive a person insane. So, why not go to an insane asylum? That's kind of my thing, and I just feel I have a certain connection. So, and I found it out in 2019, I think was my first major experience, and then I started actually going out and doing some of these hunts, if you will, ghost hunting or paranormal investigations in 2021, and we went out. My very first time was going out to Laurelton. It's in Union County, Pennsylvania, and it was the Laurelton State School and Hospital. And the place was construction began in 1913 for this place. A huge property. It's like 270 acres. So that's that. We went up there. It opened for business in 2020. It was for originally they advertised it as a place for feeble-minded and wayward women. So basically, if you were somebody that a woman that was hiking up their skirt, or if you were pregnant out of a wedlock, possibly you were considered feeble-minded, or you were also considered wayward. And back then, this was a serious thing. Like a lot of people, families, they didn't know how to react if they had a younger daughter, maybe that was running around town and was being on the wild side and was getting knocked up or whatever the case may be. Maybe dropping out of high school, which at that time a lot of people didn't go past eighth grade anyway. But if they weren't leaving school to be a homemaker, instead they were going out and being home wreckers. Why that was considered being feeble-minded or wayward, and a lot of times they didn't know what to do with these people, so they would send these girls off to the state, and the state would take them into these homes, and that's why they built this place. And it's from there it turned into it started out that way, and it turned into later on being a place for residents of mental retardation, and it remained a all girls facility, all female facility from 1920 when it opened until 1969, and that's when they integrated boys or men into the facility as well. And finally, in 1998, the doors were closed. And they had shut down business. They went in once, and for whatever reason, you can kind of leave this up to your own imagination. They were told to take every door off the hinge until they come back. No doors go back up. Every door off the hinge. No rooms locked until they come back in. And I think it was a week or two later, I read that they had gone in and finally shut the place down, and they called it a day. So that was that. Uh, so from there, I had to kind of draw my own conclusions. I had heard rumors for many years about this place. It was abandoned since 1998. The state had owned it. They had it up for sale. They tried to sell it. Somebody pulled, I don't know if you remember the one guy back in the 1990s that tried to buy the New York Islanders. He ended up, false reporting and made himself out to be like he was this big shot, billionaire, whatever. And he was good. He was able to milk out time for so long and get so many privileges as this new, guy that's going to save the Islanders and build a new arena and blah, blah, blah. And then finally push comes to shove and it was time to, put up or shut up and he couldn't do so. Well, that's kind of what this one guy did with Laurelton. He had the people out at the Arnold Palmer, like Golf Association or whatever it's called, come in and they drew up and surveyed the ground and designed this big, fancy, elaborate resort, if you will, and because they were going to put casinos in and blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. And it turns out this guy was a total phony and he didn't have anything. A couple backers that he might have had ended up telling him to get lost. And so the state took back over. And so we decided we were going to, we trespassed at that time and went to check it out. And definitely there was a vibe like I've never felt before. You could just tell something was not right there, at least for me. I get goosebumps. Both arms immediately, and there's times where I can tell like that an energy comes inside of me or comes through me, and I get tense, and I almost like freeze where I can't move, and I had that sensation that first time there. We went, got there probably about maybe lunchtime, I'm gonna say, and we did not leave. Well, we didn't leave the actual property overall or that area until probably about 7:30 the following morning. But we had ended the hunt abruptly, or I pulled the plug on it, I guess you could say, around 3:30 in the morning. You could just tell, and to me, I wanted to try to communicate if I could, but it was also about just the overall feeling, just getting video and pictures of everything there, of how it was left and how things were. I did investigations too, and I was able to find some paperwork and different artifacts that had kind of could put the pieces of the puzzle together. I went back several times since, and this place, what I found was, I would not be surprised, especially given the time period. There was a lot of mistreatment of these before it was even a place of mental retardation. Yeah, when it was like a place for the feeble-minded, wayward women. You could tell that these women were not treated correctly, and I think it was really a profiting type of business for the state of Pennsylvania to make. They had this place was, again, almost 270 acres. I'm telling you, the campus, the way it's set up, it is larger than some smaller colleges that I've been to, and they had a farm, a very large farm, and I found pictures and everything else that I didn't research before we even went there to see that they had these women out there literally like tilling and plowing the fields by hand. By fucking hand. They were milking cows by hand. They were taking care of hogs and chickens. And then once we did our own self-tour, we found that they had a very large sewing area where they pretty much, it was like a garment factory. And then come to find out that yes, and then the state sold these garments from the labor of these women. And not only that, they also had a very large kitchen and bakery area where they were selling baked goods. So they got a lot of free labor out of this first group of residents before it switched platforms, I guess you could say, if you will. And the other thing that was very interesting to me that I had found was that I was in a couple chat rooms trying to, because it's hard to get information on the place too. That was what was very eerie to me. But I found a chat room where people were discussing, and this was kind of recent years, where they were discussing like their grandparents, not knowing where they came from. They knew that they were adopted, and that's all they know. And like I have a few friends my age. I'm turning 41 here this summer. I hate to give that information out, but I have a few friends that were adopted, and adopted from the time they were a baby or whatever, adopted at birth, and they were able to recover at least the information of what adoption agency they came from. And from there, they eventually were able to gather enough information between that and I think Ancestry.com maybe to find their biological parents. And again, they were able to at least find out what adoption agency they went through and find out at least the names of the biological parents. In that manner, well, these people's they were talking on behalf of their grandparents, and their grandparents, I think it bothered them obviously their whole lives. They kind of living a life that they didn't know, because they always said, I don't know where I came from. All I know is I was always told from the time I was little, from even my adopted parents, that I was adopted out of Laurelton. But no other comment made, not Laurelton State School and Hospital. There was not an adoption agency in the little tiny village of Laurelton. So how else would it be adopted out of Laurelton? And this is an all-girls facility. And then the one lady in the chat room, speaking on behalf of her grandparents or her grandfather, said that she had heard that there was a certain doctor there that was known for impregnating women. And so from there, you can kind of, I think myself that there was maybe a trafficking situation going on or an illegal adoption ring, but I can't speak on that, per se. I can't guarantee that, but that would be my ultimate guess. But, I don't know. I see Tinkerbell has a serious question. What would that be, Tinkerbell? Or Tinklebell, I'm sorry. Tinklebell, do you have a serious question? Not seeing the question. I did try. All right. Well, like I said, that's what I had gathered. Um, it's also weird now. They say it's steam tunnels, and I do see like the piping, but that runs throughout. But there's tunnels that run the entire underground, the entire facility. Like I said, this is a giant campus. So that kind of puzzled me a bit too. And then the final tunnel that I had actually just seen the last time I visited took us even further beneath the surface. It was a downhill slope the entire time. I'm going to say probably about 50 feet below the surface. And that took us to like an incinerator place. I saw a big smokestack and another building that I did not really have time to explore much in. So, in terms of where that led, I honestly I don't know. I'm gonna hopefully have time to go back another time and explore that. But yeah, like I said, I know the feeling that I got the first time there. My well, now a former friend, I guess you could say, Travis was along, and I've done smaller investigations before. This was my first like major one at a big facility, and a lot of them I did on my own in the past. And I took a group with me this time, and I told them, I'm like, look, we don't separate. That's going to be the first rule. And you got to play by the rules because there are people that want to antagonize, and you can't do that either. I think that's a horrible thing to do, and you have to kind of play by the rules. And you got to remember that you're in their space because it's my belief anyway that I'm not saying all, but there's a lot of deceased energies that remain behind that don't even realize that they're deceased. That they go on continue. It's almost like the movie A Groundhog Day, where they continue doing the same routine over and over, and to them you're invading their space. You're in their home, and they feel almost like threatened, if you will. So there's got to be a certain peaceful coexistence established there, and that's what I said. I said, we're not there to. We can ask questions. Obviously, that's a point that you want to make. Is you want to ask some questions at some point in time. I have here. This is a what I call an EVP recorder. I actually got this from the historic haunts of Waynesboro. It used to be called the Gettysburg. Shoot, I forget the name of it now, but either way, they're now relocated in Waynesboro. Very good people. I became friends with them. Historic haunts of Waynesboro. I bought this EVP recorder. I also bought a body cam that has a clip, so I can clip that on a hat or a shirt. And I can also, it's motion detection. That's some of the tools that I use. I also use a spirit box, and that is great. That uses radio frequencies. and I have gathered many voices and have enjoyed conversations actually with questions and answers with that, as well as the EVP recorder. So that's something, if you want to get into this, that's something that you're going to need. But I honestly feel like, some people might be able to use these tools, but I also feel like these energies, these spirits, if you will, sometimes you either have it or you don't. And I used to think that I felt like it was a curse sometimes, but then I had somebody else that suggested, kept calling it a gift. And I said, there's times I don't really feel as though it's a gift. I feel almost like burdened by it. But once you learn to accept it, like I have, it's a whole different ball game. And that happened that night. Travis wouldn't play by the rules. We had gone up, three of us, me, him, and my longtime friend Kyle. And we were waiting. We went up, did our own thing, kind of looked around, investigated during the daytime. At nighttime, we had other friends that were joining us, and we were going to continue then our tour of the property. And when the others came, for some reason, Travis felt like he was going to go off, and he didn't want to be a team player, so he went off on his own. And he had never done this before. This was his very first time. He was a complete virgin when it comes to paranormal. So he goes off on his own, and he goes into this auditorium where they had a gymnasium down below. Upstairs of the auditorium, it was huge with a balcony. At one time, I saw pictures. It was absolutely beautiful. So he went in by himself, and we couldn't find him. Next thing I know, he's texting me and telling me to leave the group to go sit with him. And I was like, dude, this is not how this works. We went over this before we did this. And I said, we're going to all play by the rules or we don't do this at all. And he wouldn't come out. And I knew when he finally did, we went up to the auditorium then, and I was able to, I had some time alone. There's something when I got there that I just felt I could tell by the way he was acting that he had something happen, but he wouldn't tell me what. Nope, he was fine. He was fine. So, and I felt something in that auditorium, so I asked them all to, when they were done, I said, could you guys step out and I'll be out in 5 minutes, I swear. And I'll actually have to share here on TikTok at some point some of the pictures that I gathered while I was in there by myself, using nothing but a Interstate battery spotlight, handheld battery-powered spotlight with some different lenses that you can put on. Mine I used was like green. It just helped for night vision. There was no lights on in the place. There's no electricity going to any of these buildings except for the main administration building. They still had power there, but the rest of the building, no lighting whatsoever, pitch black dark. And to see what I had picked up on camera, actually using my cell phone camera, was it was breathtaking. But we kind of took a break at that point after we got done in the auditorium, and all of a sudden it was like the movie Bruce Almighty. When he hears all those prayers in his head all at one time and all those voices come in, I started having that. It was weird. Wind started picking up out of nowhere. It wasn't calling for that in the forecast, and I started hearing all these voices, and I heard so many like young voices, but I also heard a lot of women's voices with like 2 or 3 men's voices. And it was like, it literally was overwhelming. It was starting to really fuck me up, because I never had that experience before. And I saw Travis, and he could kind of look at me and see that I was feeling a certain way, and I could tell he was almost getting nervous. And I said, dude, what happened? Something's up. Dude, you're not gonna be able to tell me that you didn't do something or something didn't happen in there. I'm feeling it right now, and it's freaking me the fuck out. And I can see you're getting nervous. And he's like, nope, nothing, nope, nothing. Continued to lie. So we ended up going down to, we were going to march to the administration building. And, like I said, not everybody can see things, I guess, or sense things. He wanted to in the worst of ways. I think that's what, to this day, I still think that, because other things have happened since then. And he's one of those people that he wants something so bad to happen, but he just doesn't have that sensory to it. And we went down to the administration building, and I see there's a exit sign, like one of those neon exit signs, like a fire, over a door, so people can see it, like a red or orange or whatever in letters. And that was how I knew there was electricity. That was the only building. And all of a sudden, I could see the frame of a man walking, and looked like walking aggressively towards the front door. And at that point, like I said, everything else, the friction, the tension, you could just feel it. You cut it with a knife. It was that thick in the air. And I said, okay, I don't think we should go any further until I know that something took place and I have to know what before, or we're just going to be risking other people's safety. So I pulled the plug at that point. The voices were insane. I was almost tripping out over that, and we booked it back to where we were parked, which was about a mile away. So we get back there and we all kind of try to unwind a little bit, unpack. We all had backpacks on and all this equipment. The other piece of equipment that I did have that I would highly recommend, because the little bit of time that I did get to have with it and use it, I enjoyed it. It was excellent, and that is a thermal imagery camera, which I got one that attaches to like your USB port on your cell phone. And the best brand to get, I'm telling you now, anyone else I think in Paranormal will agree, is FLIR 1. And I got it on sale. These things are expensive. And I got it on sale for like 50% off from a distributor on eBay. And again, good person to lend it to, I guess. I let Travis borrow it one time, and he brought it back, and it was broken, did not work anymore. So that's something I need to add to my arsenal and buy another one when I can afford to do so. But so we go back, we unload, we're all chilling, kind of unwinding a little bit and hanging out in this big parking lot, just kind of talking about things we saw or whatever. And once we got back there, a couple people had a couple beers, and I don't drink. I don't think you should mix that, but when doing something like this, but they waited till afterwards. It was cool. And once everybody left, Travis and I were the last ones there, and it was starting to get daylight. So we decided we'd take a look around the parking area, because it's a joint state game land. Wanted to make sure we were responsible in case anyone else left anything late. We would pick it up. Did a final sweep of the property, looking around, and I'm starting to look at. He gives me his camera, and I'm looking at some of the things that he had on tape or on film inside that auditorium, and I saw that he started really getting pushy. And he wanted something to happen so bad that he began barking out orders. And not only did he bark out orders, that he told, he was speaking to, I guess, whoever might have been there, that his friend Josh was on the way. And if they didn't come to him and start talking to him and look into his camera and make noise and move around, they were going to be in a lot of trouble, because I was an expert and I was a psychic or a medium, and they were going to pay if when I got there if they didn't do what he said. And we got in his car. He drove up. I rode in his passenger side of his car on the way up and on the way back. When we got in the car, I sat down. I went to grab the seatbelt to put the seatbelt across me, and when I did, and he saw it too, and that's when it changed his whole perspective. The seatbelt came up across my throat from almost like somebody from sitting in behind, but there was no one in the back seat. It was only he and I, and it was an old Chevy Cavalier, and the seatbelt came up and started around my throat and choked me, and something at the same time touched the back of my right ear and the back of my right arm, all simultaneous. And I freaked the fuck out, screamed, started flailing my arms. He hit the brakes right away. Somehow I lost the cell phone. I had it with me. I don't know if, I don't think I threw it out the window, because I didn't even have the window down. So that would have been impossible. But here nor there, as soon as he hit the brakes and got stopped, I was out of the car. I was like, fuck this, and I blamed it on him, which I do feel as though he did cause it. When he came out of that building, I knew that something was not right, that he had stirred a pot. The tension had grown ever since then. And, I to this day, I still think that's the reason. I think that if somebody has a certain ability, like the fact that I had those feelings and I was hearing those voices, and that's something I've experienced since then too. That person that has that sensory to it, we're going to be the ones that are most likely going to feel the wrath. I feel anyway. That's my opinion. So I feel like, he did cause a good bit of it. The funny thing is with that phone, we stayed there then and looked and searched that property all over the place because I know I had it getting into his car. And then all of a sudden, that's the point. I mean, we didn't go down the road or anything like that. It had to have been in a very small, confined area, and we never found the phone. I pinged it myself using another phone and using Cricket wireless services, and it showed me the exact location where it is, and we went there and it's not there. Nobody had time to to maybe find it while we weren't there. We were there the entire time. So I ended up going to Cricket when I got back. Went to them to get another phone, obviously. They pinged it, tried to locate it, and they said where it was at. And I said, I know. I said, we combed that area. There was no way it was laying under leaves or anything like it. We were there, right on top, and it was nowhere to be found. It wasn't dead yet. We tried calling it. It would ring, but no ringing sound. And they transferred all the files over, and the guy said, well, good news is, at least, I was able to transfer everything that I got, or that you got, up throughout that date. And it turns out, no. Actually, it didn't transfer over. It transferred, it did everything up until that point. Everything from, because up until we got out to the car, I guess, transferred over. And then from that point on, nothing else was wiped clean, because I was taking pictures like on the way out, and I got stuff while I was inside the property, but then nothing from walking out of the property to the vehicle. We took some group photos at the end out in the parking lot. None of that transferred over. So it was very weird in that sense. Never did find the phone. So, I actually was physically accosted by a spirit, and that still wasn't enough to stop me. I went back a few weeks later. I told Travis at that point in time that I was done. He would never hunt with me again, which I ended up relenting, and he ended up doing something stupid again. Did almost exactly what he was told not to do, and he said he learned his lesson, would not do. So now I have not hunted with him ever since, but I have been back to that actual same facility. I'm going to say probably 5-6 times now, because it's so huge you can't cover it all. They have, I think, around like 15 like dormitory buildings, or what they call cottages. They have a main school building, and then they also have a auditorium, gymnasium with the basketball court and stuff's down below, and then locker room, and then bleachers, everything, and up above in the upper half is the full auditorium. They have one building that's just like a cafeteria and like a kitchen bakery area. They have the administration building is gigantic. It's enormous. It looks like a giant castle / like mansion. That's weird in itself, because they have the psychiatric laboratory was in the basement of the administration building. And the basement was super deep as well. And down there they had a full garage, and then they also had a psychiatric laboratory, as they called it, and they also had what they were referring to as their own postmaster. That was a bit strange. And then they also have a hospital. They have a hospital building itself that it's a full. They even had, which I also thought was strange. They had a hospital. They had a morgue or mortuary. They had both mortuary and a morgue, and then they also had their own autopsy room, and it said autopsies were performed there on residents that had died. Now, the odd thing was they don't have a cemetery. Danville State Hospital is not very far whatsoever from this location. I'm going to say within an hour, and they have a cemetery. Most of these types of state hospitals or state schools that I know of in the state of Pennsylvania all have cemeteries. This one has none, but yet they have a morgue, a mortuary, and a autopsy room. And they also had a prosthetics room as well, and an operating room. It's one of those things you'd almost have to see it to believe it. So it's quite strange, but it's also quite it's quite interesting, to say the least. The other weird thing was I had seen, and this would have been candidates from like back in the 1990s, I saw a room that was completely filled with political campaign swag and signs and so on. So I know in a lot of like pictures of like Rick Santorum and Tom Ridge, who used to be governor, and Santorum, I think, was a senator, and it's just very strange. So there's definitely some money and some political influence in this particular place. I've also if you go to, now it was a daytime shoot. I would like to go back there at nighttime because I've been there before I got into this practice. But there's a Indian burial ground where they actually call it the burial or the Indian mound that is in the county where I live, which is Juniata County. I do have some stuff there from on the YouTube channel that I took some video there, but it was, again, during the daytime. It's a little bit different, obviously. The less chance of seeing apparitions and orbs and things of that nature. That's that. But I do have some film footage from Laurelton. Not every time I was there have I put up, but I do have a collection of stuff from there that does have some very fascinating events that had taken place. I did not get the seatbelt, unfortunately, because I was preparing to go home and ride with him. He was behind the wheel and ready to drive and start pulling away when this happened. And so it always seems like when the cameras are down and not shooting is when you get some of the greatest stuff. You miss some of the greatest events. And while that wasn't a great event, it would have been fascinating to have on film. That's for damn sure. Go to the YouTube channel. That's Goin Ghostal. It's a YouTube channel. I spell it Goin as in Goin apostrophe, not going, but Goin, Ghostal, Ghostal. And, again, if you're in the Pennsylvania area, you want to get some of the best equipment available to you, check out, and you can also get, ghost tours as well from these people. They're also into a lot of your metaphysical, things and different practices and therapies, very therapeutic. Go to Historic Haunts of Waynesboro, and, they just very down to earth, friendly people. I met them actually when they were in Gettysburg when it was called the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange. I just now remembered it. They had done some work with Mark Nesbitt, who has the Ghost of Gettysburg. Mark's a good guy too. I had a chance to meet him before, and I actually purchased one of his books and had him autograph it and so on. But I know I'm actually going to be getting in contact with the folks at Historic Haunts of Waynesboro soon. We wanted to do we've been talking about it for some time, and then last year they had to move and did the relocation and opening up both places there. So a little bit busy times, but we wanted to get into some hunts and do some activities together, maybe do a trade-off. So I'm going to actually be in contact with them soon myself, but met them for the first time at Gettysburg. They were so down to earth. We shared some video and some pictures of our own. They showed us a lot of things and exchanged some ideas, and I bought some equipment off of them. We exchanged phone numbers and email addresses, and we've become friends since. I went and checked out the new store last summer, and I look forward to actually getting down there again soon and paying a visit and maybe, like I said, working with them. So this kind of stuff isn't for everybody. I warn you now. It's not. I actually had somebody contact me last week from down in Louisiana. Because I also have an Instagram page. You can check out Instagram as well, Goin Ghostal, Paranormal Investigators. And I have that, and I also have a Facebook page. And the person in Louisiana, they were from Bush, Louisiana, and I got this message on Instagram, and I don't always check my messages there. I don't get notifications because I'm not quite as busy there as I am other platforms. And it said that I need your help. And when I finally got to him, I was like, okay, and said, what's going on? And he said that he and his wife and his, mother live 200 yards from a Indian burial ground. And they began, I guess they have lived there now for, what do you say, like 6-7 years, something like that. And here the past couple of years, they had begun collecting arrowheads that they had found. And then his mother, I guess, found or unearthed with a lawnmower or some crazy story. I hope they weren't digging, but it almost sounded to me like they may have. He said they unearthed a tomahawk head. And she started keeping these artifacts, these arrowheads and this tomahawk or spearhead near where she slept in her bedroom. And she began having apparitions at the footing and heading of her bed. And he said it started to become more commonplace and more regular occurrences. So then also he said he started having them more often. Like he said one time in his living room, he heard his voice being said. There's no one home. He heard his voice being spoken, and somebody said his name. There's no voice, but his name was spoken. Somebody said his name out loud. Nobody around, and he said, "I know what I heard. I wasn't delusional." He said they had some old, like outside candles or whatever around their house that they hadn't used. They were old, had been there for like a year. He said they don't smoke or anything, and so they actually had no lighters or matches at the time because they haven't used these candles. They used the last that they had, not gotten any more to replace them. And two different occasions at nighttime, like all the candles that were around the house just lit on their own. And then he said finally he had a moment where he saw an apparition, and then he was suddenly like shoved like into or up against his refrigerator. And I said, that's not good. So I got some background information from him, and I told him some things to try. I had to eradicate some unwanted spirits or energies that were not willing to be friendly and coexist. And it's crazy to do so. The one was quite the event, but I told him, I said, I do have full confidence in the fact, in my abilities to do so. So I told him, I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, first of all, you need to take back those artifacts and put them back in their spots. He said, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. I said, well, whoever helped take them off that spot needs to help take them back, everybody. So, I said, it's a gesture. It's because, obviously I said, it sounds like you're being the target, but, if your mother and your wife had helped, and I think you all need to take these artifacts back, then give it a few days and see what happens. And he said, this has been going on for quite some time. And I can just tell he's very nervous about everything, which I don't blame him. That could be a scary event. And I told him, I was like, well, look, I think he kind of alluded to the fact that he'd like to have me go down and check things out. And I told him, I said, I will do that. I said, I don't practice alone or travel alone. I said, but, and I'm from Pennsylvania. I said, so, times are tough right now. I said, we travel within the state. If somebody calls us, no problem. But we're talking about, plane tickets. It's a very, many hours away. It would be almost probably close to a 15, 16-hour drive to do it by car. I said, so, you'd have to incur the travel costs, for us to plane tickets or whatever. Me and one other team member of mine. I said, and also I would ask that we have full permission to film everything and to broadcast what we do gather. So I said that's going to be the requirements. I said, but if you agree to those things, I would be more than happy. And so would, again, one of our crew members, we'd be more than happy to come down and check it out and do what we can for you. And, it would give us an episode, and it'd be a cool experience, and, just kind of show the world what we can do, and we can actually make your life a lot better and, help keep you at peace. So, I told him to try these things, take the artifacts back. I told him some other things to do. I told him he's allowed to verbally speak to them, but to be firm, but not be mean, not have an attitude. Just be firm in the way he speaks, and let those know that is their home. It's not theirs. That they are not welcome there anymore, and that they are to leave. And I also told him to take the artifacts back, put them, if you can't find the exact spot, get them close to it. Everybody involved that helped bring them to the house, they need to be the ones to do so. I also told them to try getting some sage, burn some sage around, all the rooms that they had apparitions or any type of energies, or they heard noises. I asked if they had any dogs or children. They said yes, dogs, chihuahuas, and they would go crazy out of nowhere. I said, and that's perfectly normal. That's why I asked about children too. Pets and children seems like they're a little bit more receptive or responsive to it. Their sensory to it is just a bit more heightened, but luckily no kids, so that was good. So I said I would like to ask some more questions. We were kind of messaging back and forth. I said, I'd like to be able to write down some of these answers if I can call you. I said, but why don't you, he gave me his number. We exchanged information. I said, but why don't you do what I asked you to do first, and then we'll go from there. We'll give it like 3-4 days. We'll reconvene here, and we'll see where you're at. And then if need be, I'll ask you some more questions, get an idea of what we're getting into, and if you want to have us down, we'll come down. And luckily, what I suggested to him thus far, knock on wood, has worked. So, it's you have to believe, and there's people that have no belief in it whatsoever. And, and that's fine. I know from my own experiences, I don't have any choice but to believe in it. I've made contact. I've had conversations with using spirit box and EVP recorders. I've had plenty of things touch me. Actually, I have uh, trying to think of sleep paralysis. That's one of the common things for me when I have a very, very personal experience. It is usually through sleep paralysis, which is the only time I get sleep paralysis, is when that happens. And that's a very scary event too. And that's what actually helped lead to some of this was sleep paralysis on a couple of occasions back in 2019. I actually had to contact a medium. They knew nothing about me and we were able to pinpoint things pretty quickly. And that medium said to me, did you speak to your spirit guides? I was like, what? Yeah, I mean, I knew what she was talking about, but it was just kind of weird that, and she said, I knew you're one of us as soon as I talked to you. She said, you just haven't realized your gift or your potential yet. And I had some things happen before that at an ex-girlfriend's house the prior year. Something we heard it actually, like the neighbor's dog followed it through the yard outside at night. We could hear the dog barking at it. We heard it, the door down below, the kitchen door open. We heard, a noise of somebody like walking in the kitchen, walking up the stairs, came up the stairs in our bedroom, sat down right on the foot of our bed. And like almost like it was taking off its shoes, and like that was at one time its bedroom. And then what really scared us was it actually got up and we could hear her go back out in the hallway and go into her daughter's bedrooms as well, and she freaked out. And I don't blame her, but I was actually able to get rid of that as well. The only crazy time I had was at my friend Lawrence's. He brought something home from work. We saw it on some video he had. It was a very old house, and I think around like Hershey, Pennsylvania area. And it was bought by a doctor, and he does hardwood floors, excellent job, actually, one of the best in the business at his craft. But he was having all these noises, and he started videoing with his phone, and you could actually see a face of one at the bottom of the staircase, and it was crazy. And it attached itself to him, and he brought it home. And I got a Bible out. Like, it was almost like performing an exorcism at the time. Picked up a pair of shoes, and the shoes just picked up out of nowhere and flew off the wall. Like, I swear to God, it was like a scene from a fucking movie. But, so yeah, that's what I do on the side when I'm not writing music or not, roasting liberals and being the political commentator guy. Not podcasting or when I'm not on the wisdom app doing wisdom talks. I do paranormal shit because that's I'm not a big fan of heights. I mean, I'll fly or whatever. The last time I flew was a horrible experience. Thanks Delta and United Airlines. But I don't like heights. I don't ride roller coasters. I don't skydive. I don't bungee jump. I don't do all that crazy shit. To me, this is my adrenaline rush. This is what makes me go. It's what makes my heart pump. It's my excitement. And, it's what I enjoy. And now I'm finding out as I get older that it's something. And the funny thing is, I saw so many things when I was younger. And I remember saying one time out loud to the family or to my parents, I saw I think it was my mother's cousin that had died young. She was like 27 when she passed away, and I was little. She never had kids, so she made my sister and I, like, we felt like we were hers. Like, she thought of us as her own, really spoiled us and stuff. And there's times where I would see her after she had passed away, and it actually freaked me out. And I was afraid of, like, going to funeral homes after that. And she never would have hurt me in a million years. I caught her one time in our basement. I was throwing baseball off the wall, the concrete wall down in the basement, on a rainy day, because I used to love baseball, and I was using her glove that my uncle actually gave me, her old softball mitt. And I heard a noise, and I turned around, and I could see her, and she was dressed exactly how she was in her casket. It was weird. And as soon as I turned around and spotted her, she ducked down, like, for me to not see her. And I ran up the stairs so fucking fast, I swear to God, my feet never hit a fucking step the whole way up. And I was terrified. And I remember telling my mom, and I just kind of felt like I was, I don't know, I mean, I don't think it was on purpose, but she made me feel like I was crazy. And then I had other instances of other relatives and family members that had passed, and seeing them, we'd go visit, like, their widow or whatever at their home, and I would see them in their house, and it freaked me out, and I was afraid to say anything because I thought I was crazy. Like, and then come to find out I wasn't crazy. It was actually quite normal what I was seeing. So you don't always know until you know. I guess that's the only way I know how to put it. Or until you actually have your first conversation, or for me, like the other weird thing was one time we were doing a hunt, and my friend Bobby and I, we used a spirit box. I had actually it hooked up with an auxiliary cord running to my cell phone so I could record the audio. We didn't analyze anything on the scene. We waited till we got back, came back to my house. Hooked up my laptop and all my sound gear. I had a soundboard, headsets, and everything, so we could really dial it in and isolate sounds. And every time anyone else spoke, we heard it crystal clear. It was them, our teammates or team members speaking. Anytime I went to speak, a spirit would speak to the spirit box through my voice. It was, you're not like, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like, my voice plus the sound of spirit box, and they're almost like demonic sounding voice. And anytime I spoke, that's what came out. But everybody else, spoke as normal on camera. So I guess if you have it, you have it. They know it, and maybe you don't always know it, but you'll find out later. There's no way. I don't really think it's something. Once you know you have it and you realize it, I think it's something you can hone. But I don't think it's something that just anybody can bring about in their life either. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. It probably depends on what dimension you're on, in your own personal life journey or your life path. But that's how I feel. It's like it's one of those things, like being, such a special athlete that you're going to go on to be a professional athlete. Because there's people who are not like, when you consider how many people play, little league or like pop order football, but then how many actually go on to even play Division I college, and then from there, how many of those actually make it to the pros. It's like almost like 1 in a million. They're that kind of special talent. Same way with musicians. If you don't have rhythm, you don't have a beat. It's hard, and you just might not have it. And that's one of these things. I just feel like it's something that you have or you don't. So, but it's definitely interesting. And if you ever have any questions, if you're in Pennsylvania, unless you want to pay for travel, if you're in Pennsylvania and you do have something seriously interrupting your life, hey, reach out to me, let me know. Like I said, I do this part-time. I'm not a professional. I don't claim to be, but we do offer to go check things out and do some investigations for people. And, it's a great thing to do, I think. And I always feel as though if the Lord blesses me with a talent or with a gift, I feel like when he gives us these things, these abilities, we're meant to do it. So I figured this would be a little bit better talk than the typical let's go Brandon, fuck Joe Biden, fuck Obama, and the whole deep state and New World Order. They can stick their New World Order up their ass. They can stick their vaccines up their ass. But sometimes it's better to just go in another direction once in a while for my own sanity, if nothing else. So that's that. I am Joshy MasQuerade. Thank you for hanging out and giving me your time here tonight on this live. And again, go to the YouTube channel, Goin Ghostal, Paranormal Investigators. Check us out on Instagram as well, and a Facebook page, also the same. I don't have the website published right now. If I get back into it and I'm going to dedicate that kind of time, I will look into that and do so. I kind of have it on pause, but we did have a website. Might do that at a later date. I do have some clothing and stuff that I was going to actually make available for sale on the website. So maybe we'll do that here later in the summer. We'll see how life goes. Life has thrown me some really twists and turns and upended me here the last year. So I'm still trying to survive and get on my feet and get back to life. And I need to find a job now. And had a friend, actually two friends, commit suicide. One while I was on an airplane on the way to San Diego. And that's what I found out about that, and I was also fired from my job at the same time. Then my unemployment defrauded, and that was delayed for 6 months. And then I've been upended and had to move twice. It's never fun. So I got to get myself, and before I can do too much of this, that's the other thing, is making sure that you're in a stable state of mind. That you're in a good place, because otherwise, if they will see that as a weakness if you have some vulnerabilities. So you got to be mentally strong. It's not for everybody. So I'm just trying to live a day at a time, to be honest with you, and keep my own depression and stuff in check. And hopefully something will go my way, and we can pick this up and show you a little bit more of what I'm good at and what we do, and It's definitely something that's become popular over the years, and I think it's a great teaching tool and a great lesson to learn. And also, I love the historical aspect of it. So that's another reason I do it because I'm a history buff. I'm a nerd, and it just goes with the territory. And I like to have plenty of hobbies, and I got plenty of hobbies. That's for damn sure. So I just want to thank you again, Joshy Cox Films, in association with Masquerade Productions. I am Joshy MasQuerade, aka Joshy Cox, the original Joshy Cox, leader of Joshua Holics worldwide. And welcome to the Masquerade Goin Ghostal Paranormal Investigators. I'm out. Good night, everybody. Ooh.